Okay. I love that video. When you meet people in the world today, it really is so apparent that this message is so badly needed. There are so many people who actually we're in a position to care for others, whether we're a parent or a boss or whatever. But not everybody wants to fulfill that role. Not everyone wants to lead their family. Not everyone wants to care for their family. And it's left many hurt and damaged people in this world. And actually this is really kind of hits the heart of the message that I want to give today, which is becoming a visionary. And I'll explain why later. First of all, I don't know if you've seen this. We have a new banner on the back of our building, and it's right behind this wall here. And you know, with the new park coming in and all the people in the park, we thought, you know, this is a really great opportunity to take advantage of that space and do a little advertising. But of course, we had to figure out what we're going to put on there. And we thought, well, we have a really beautiful vision, you know, our vision statement in the back, but it's really long. Like, you can't stick that on the banner. So we would need something more concise, something more easy to remember, something that really kind of embodies what we're all about in a short phrase. So we came up with this: healing the world through building God-centered families. And then, you know, French service, English service, everyone is welcome, social media, all those things. And anyway, I hope it's a really great I hope that when people see it, that it inspires them. I know that when I talk with people about our church, and when I talk to people how much family is such a central aspect of what we teach and our priorities and what we do, people are really inspired by that. People even go on as far to say, I wish more churches talked about family. I wish more churches, you know, focused on family. Because, you know, realistically, you know, most faith is very individual oriented. It's really about my relationship with God, you know, my personal, you know, whatever it is that I'm dealing with. Even when you take your marriage vows, right, it's till death do us part. It's not even at that point considered to be an eternal relationship. But to focus on the family as being the place where God dwells and where God works is, I think, really beautiful, and it's a sign of the times that we need that kind of understanding. Which is why normally on a day like today, I would look at the crowd and I would feel kind of depressed. I was like, where is everybody? But I don't feel sad today because we have so many people missing because they're at the marriage retreat. And we went up there yesterday and we spent some time with them, and of course we went back in November, so we got to experience it, but you know, my parents are there, and we have about 17 couples that went all together. Some mostly from our community, but a few people even came from Texas and New Mexico, Iowa. One family came from Iowa, you know, to be able to attend. So it was really beautiful just to see everybody there, really giving their marriage a boost, and maybe in some cases a second chance. And some young couples there too who really, you know, investing for the future. Maybe they're not like struggling per se, but you know that, you know, this is a good investment for the future. And that was really beautiful to see. And you know, it's really amazing to be able to watch how sometimes you think that, I'll be honest, there were some couples there that I never thought would ever go. And it was almost a small miracle to see some of them there. But it was beautiful. It was a beautiful kind of, you know, miracle. It was a great kind of thing. And you know, when we were looking at what is our faith all about, what is our teaching all about, what is our church all about, this is something that really came to me about our family. How important it is for this world to have more God-centered families. There's this group you might know of, because we have one person in our community that works for them. It's called High Noon. I was talking with a friend of mine, and she works for High Noon now, just recently. And High Noon originally started off as the Blessed Marriage Project. It originally started off as one person with a vision, a certain amount of money, and he really wanted to see these marriage ministries happen. So he created this like 3-day thing where couples would come and they'd go to a nice resort type place, have really nice food, hear great content, and revitalize their marriage and their blessing. But then at one point, at some point after doing a number of them, he came to realize that, or they came to realize, him and his wife, that it wasn't enough just to try to focus. A lot of couples had really deep-rooted issues, and it was really hard to try to deal with them after so many years of difficulty. Plus, many of the people there are dealing with heavy addictions and deep traumas, and he realized that this is really great, but we need to try to come up with a solution earlier in the problem, try to be more kind of proactive. So then the Blessed Marriage Project became High Noon. And High Noon is all about being completely transparent in terms of me as a person, as a husband, as a wife, as a parent, as an adult, and especially in the area of like sexual addiction. People who have sexual addictions of pornography or just really a hard time, like too high expectations of their spouse or something like that, and it's tearing the family apart. But then, what my friend was telling me is that they realized that, yeah, that's a real issue, but it's not necessarily the root issue either. When you dig further, you realize that a lot of these people who have strong addictions, who have deep trust issues, they stem from our experience in our families, growing up as children, our experiences in the world that shaped us and molded us from a young age. And I started to realize that this is good, just like the Blessed Marriage Project is good and the High Noon is good, but we also need to work in the formative family level, which I think is a really good, this is why we decided that we wanted to become pastors, because we felt that the biggest impact that we could have in our church community was working on the family level, the family and the community level. Is through developing those areas that we could help to build stronger families, stronger foundation for our young people, our children, to be able to grow up and be a healthy adult and healthy contribution to the world. So when we were thinking about a statement to go on our banner, then thinking about all these things, then we really felt that healing the world through building God-centered families is really the core of what we're about. It's the core about why we learned the divine principle. It's the core about why we have true parents. It's the core about why we have the blessing. Because the blessing and the divine principle and truth and everything is great, but if we're not using that to actively build God-centered families, what's the point? But it doesn't say healing the world through having God-centered families or through having ideal families. It's through building. So it recognizes that it's a constant investment. It's we're constantly working on it and improving it and developing. It's not like some end thing that we're going to have someday and then that's it. It's a constant effort that we are constantly putting into making our families better. How can we align my family or myself with what God wants for me in my life? In order to do this, we really need to have the vision for it in our life. And so I want to talk about Abraham real quick. Now, there's this interesting phenomenon in the Bible that you may or may not know, where God will come and change somebody's name. Do you know about this? Right? So Abraham originally was named Abram. And here's where it talks about that. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, I am God Almighty. Walk before me faithfully and be blameless. Then I will make my covenant between me and you and will greatly increase your numbers. So God is giving a vision to Abram at the time. He's saying, yes, you're old, but there's a great vision for you and your descendants, and you may not see it, but this is what I promise to you, we will make a covenant. If you are faithful to me, and will increase your numbers. At some point, he says, your descendants will be more than all of the stars in the sky and the grains of sand on the earth, or something like that. Abram fell face down, and God said to him, "As for me, this is my covenant for you. You will be the father of many nations. No longer will you be called Abram, your name will be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations." So I want to share a little story, and this isn't the most comfortable thing for me to share, but it's the honest truth. When I was in middle school, I was a little bit of a troubled child. And I would actually get in trouble quite often because I was so mean to the other kids. And I especially picked on the ones that were different. It's embarrassing for me to look back on that time in my life right now. But when I was younger, I just really wanted to fit in so badly that all I just wanted was some cheap laughs. And if I could get that by picking on other kids, then it was okay. And I'm a bit ashamed of that. But when I graduated middle school, they did a ceremony, kind of like a graduation. And they gave awards to everybody for what they thought that you would eventually become. And of course, I was dreading the award because I thought they were going to come up with something related to my behavior. Like I would end up in jail, or I would end up, a recluse or something like that because nobody liked me. But I was surprised and a little bit shocked when they gave me the award that I would be a future teacher. I gave my teachers a really hard time. Just to give you an example, I one time threw our school books out the window of the second story of the school, just for fun. And it was just those kind of things. And but the funny thing about that is it's really stuck with me, that experience. In my mind, I was like, why would they look at my poor behavior and come to the conclusion that I was going to be this, basically teachers are really giving people, right? They're kind of like saints there. They go to school and they go to a place where, the students are not, they're not going to be appreciated for what they're doing. And they're not necessarily going to see the fruits of their efforts until maybe many years down the road. And you have to put a lot of effort into caring for those kind of people who may never appreciate you or recognize all the work that you're doing. But I just kind of forgot about it for a while. I didn't think about it because I couldn't reconcile why they would think that I would become a teacher. But I never could forget. And now that I'm a parent, I realize that you can't label people based on their behavior and expect them to become better than they are. We see a lot in our world as parents, but also I think that just in our relationships in general, whether it's with your husband or wife or your employees, coworkers, or whatever, it can be really easy to kind of just look at the way somebody's acting, their behavior in that time, and just say, oh, they're always like that. It's like with your kids. If they're not listening to you, it can be really easy to say, oh, they just don't listen. They're bad kids. I remember we went through a phase of that at one point where our kids were just really not listening to us. This was maybe about 4 years ago or something. And we were really struggling because they're not listening to us. They're not listening to us, but we know they're not bad kids. So, we had to really look like, are we doing something wrong? Are we communicating in a way that where they just don't want to listen to us, or what is it? But eventually we realized that, if we just decide that our kids are never going to listen to us, then they're probably going to be like that. But if we decide that, if we cast a vision that our kids are going to listen to us, and also that we're going to, not just that they're going to listen to us, but that we're going to have a close relationship, then we find the ways to make that actually happen. So even though when I was younger, I wasn't acting like a potential future teacher, these great people saw that was the vision for my life, and they cast that vision onto me. So I've been learning a lot about vision casting lately. This idea that we have a vision and we kind of adopt the vision as a group. And I realized that, hold up, what we got here? Oh yeah, I'll get to that in a minute. I realized that we're actually doing that all the time, one way or the other. But it's not always like a God-centered vision or a good vision. Sometimes we cast a negative vision. Sometimes we think, oh, my husband or my wife or my kids or my coworker, they're just a bad person, and they're always going to be the way they are, and they're never going to change. Or maybe we have the vision for them that they're a wonderful person, and I just love them so much, and they're going to grow up to be, or maybe like with your kids, you look at your kids and they're like, my kid's going to grow up to be a saint. It's going to grow up to be an incredibly successful professional with a spiritual life and want to help others and do things for the world. And I was reading this book by this pastor, and he was sharing about how when his kids were young, he would sit down with his kids at bedtime and he would talk to them about how God has a plan for you. God has great things in store for your life. And I just thought that was so beautiful, because how many times do people sit down with their kids and tell them that? How many times do people sit down with their spouse or their kids or whatever, whoever is significant in their life, and just tell them how great their future is going to be? Even if they have reason to look at their current behavior and think this person is going to be a nobody. And I'm not saying that we should ignore current behavior. I'm just saying that when we believe that someone's never going to change, then even if they do change, we probably won't even notice it or believe it. But if we believe that things can change, if we believe that someone can be better than they are, then we're always going to be looking for the way in which we can fulfill that expectation. So, you may recognize this. Obviously, it's more than the logo. It's actually written, but Six Flags. Everybody knows Six Flags, right? It's famous, not just in America, but around the world. Everyone's heard of Six Flags. It's not as famous as Disneyland, but it's second, it's comparable. So I was reading about Six Flags, actually. And it's interesting that the story of Six Flags is, you may be surprised, but Six Flags actually started off as a really dumpy attempt at a theme park, almost like a hyped up carnival. And they had this thing, and it was called Six Flags, but nobody wanted to go there. All the employees were very rude. It was dirty. Nobody bothered to clean up. And they had a few of these, but they were really, really struggling. And so this guy, he came in and he decided he was going to try to turn around Six Flags because it was going bankrupt. And first thing he said, he gathered up all the employees, and he said, someday Six Flags is going to be like Disney World. And they laughed, and they were like, you're crazy. How could you ever believe that what we have is going to... And because they were so cynical about Six Flags, they didn't care to treat the customers well. They didn't care to clean up. They were just totally resigned, like this is a failure of a theme park. Why bother to make a lot of effort? But then he said, but even though these people were like, no, it's never going to happen, how can you compare Six Flags to Disney World? He said, but that's the beginning. Just the fact that you could use the word Six Flags and Disney World in the same sentence, that you could even have them in the same conversation, is the beginning of even believing that it can happen in the first place. And then from there, of course, there was a lot of practical steps that needed to happen, right, in terms of turning the park around. But people slowly started to believe that Six Flags could be a thing. And now you have Six Flags in almost every major city in the country. And you have Six Flags in other countries of the world. And it's not the same as Disney World, but some of them have almost etched out a more amazing experience than even, because there's only so many Disneylands and Disney Worlds, but there's all kinds of Six Flags, and they're all different. But it was an amazing testament to how somebody who could bring a new vision in that people didn't believe, but just by talking about it, just by believing in it, the one person could eventually transform the whole organization. So that brings me back to, you're probably wondering why I talked about Abraham. That brings me back to that. So there's another example I want to share about in the Bible, and this is Simon, who was later named Peter, one of the disciples of Jesus. So let me read this here. Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, was one of the two who heard what John had said and who had followed Jesus. The first thing Andrew did was to find his brother Simon and tell him, "We have found the Messiah, that is the Christ," and he brought him to Jesus. Jesus looked at him and said, "You are Simon, son of John. You will be called Cephas," which when translated is Peter. So it's an interesting story. Do you get where this is going? So Jesus meets this guy Simon, and first thing he does is he changes his name. Kind of interesting, don't you think? Like, that would be a little, I mean, I think that maybe the culture was different at that time, and changing your name was a very common thing for people to do. But, and I know people who change their name for different reasons, but generally we attach our identity and in some ways, our life experiences to our name, right? And the idea of changing your name to something completely different is kind of, especially when you just walk up to somebody and they say, "Okay, your name is now Peter." It's kind of crazy. But then later on he says to Peter, "And I tell you that you are Peter. You are Peter. And on this rock I will build my church." So Peter literally means the rock, or a rock. Literally in Greek it means rock. "I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." So there's that familiar verse, right? Let me see here where we got. Okay. So in the Bible, there's many instances where God or Jesus or people had their name changed either because they fulfilled a certain thing in their life, or because or Jesus had a vision that they would fulfill something in their life. And it made me think of my middle name. My middle name is Changguk, which in Korean means building a nation, building the nation. And I never really thought about it so much. But in preparation for my sermon and remembering back on my experience in school where they told me that I would be a teacher even though there shouldn't have been any signs that would be my future profession. And I'm not a teacher, but I mean, there's a sense of teaching, right, in pastoring, in a sense, care and education and whatnot. What people did in that experience was they cast a vision for my life. I was, even despite my behavior, I was envisioned to be a teacher. In Jesus saw something in Peter, and he changed his name to the Rock, and he told them that on this rock, we're going to build this church, and we're going to build the kingdom of God. Now, as you know, Peter went on, he was the one who actually denied Jesus 3 times when he was on the cross. But he did go on actually to build. He did go on eventually to fulfill his namesake. But it really takes the ability to not look at the specific circumstances of the moment. And when we talk about vision, I want you to understand that we're not talking about, usually when you talk about a vision statement or a mission statement, right, you're talking about an organization or a church or something like that, right? But what I'm talking about has nothing to do with that, really. Because whether we understand it or know it or recognize it, we are all doing that every day. We are either living a vision, casting a vision, we're casting some kind of vision. It might be a positive vision, or it might not be. It might be more of a negative vision about ourselves or the people in our lives, our children, our parents, or whatever. And I think that the ability for Jesus to be able to look at a person, and because all of Jesus's followers, disciples, were like relatively not accomplished people. They were fishermen and poor people in many cases. And to be able to look at them and see the potential, not just to see the potential, but to believe in the vision despite maybe the way that they're living their life at the time, is an aspect, an ability that we all need to have. Because we all have people in our lives. We have our husbands, our wives, our children, our parents, our coworkers, our associates, our friends. And every time we interact with somebody, it's based off of the way that we perceive that person. And it's based off of the future that we believe that person could have, especially if they're like family. And, we know people. We know people who will talk bad about their kids. Oh, my kid is good for nothing, never going to amount to anything, got so many problems, never listen to me, probably going to end up in jail, these kind of things. And I know that most people aren't like that, but you do hear that from people, like literally. And it really makes me sad because I don't think that that's anybody's destiny. Now with Abram means exalted father, and Abraham means father of many. So even though God didn't change his name terribly, but he did change it a little bit to capture the vision that God had for him in his life. So what I'm getting at is that just like we have people in our lives, and I hope that all of you can have this experience or have had this experience where someone believed in you, someone saw something in you greater than what you could even believe that they could see or could see for yourself. We need to be that for one another. We need to be embodiments of that for each other, people here in our community, our family members. If we who believe in God and believe in God's love for each and every one of us can't do that, then I think we're really missing something really, really important in our faith and our teaching. So, I've mentioned this before. Our vision statement in the back of the room. It's gone. Anyway, the thing we put up on the banner, they don't represent where we're at in this moment, but it represents a vision that we need to believe in. Because if we don't believe in it, then there's no reason to be here and there's no reason to be doing what we're doing. And it really moved my heart when I was up at the marriage retreat and I saw people who I kind of felt like we're at the point of giving up on the future, giving up on happiness, giving it another shot, looking for what is God's way in this situation. And when I think back on my name, Changguk, building the nation, actually gives me a lot of pride now. I feel like maybe I could live into that name, building the nation. I really actually like that. It's a great namesake to have. And there's something really interesting about names, something really beautiful about it. So, even though we're tempted in our life to write off each other, please let's take another look. Let's look at where we've made conclusions about people and decided that people based on the way they live and their fruits are always going to be a certain way. Let's try to turn a new leaf. Let's try to believe that people can be more than they are. And live with that conviction. Just like what we're trying to do with the church. Just like what we're trying to do with our community. Just like we're trying to do with our children. Let's just make that a way of life. And I think that we'll all be better for it. So that's my message, so please join me in prayer. Good morning, our most beloved Heavenly Parent. I am grateful and humbled to be here this morning. Thank you for everyone that came, and we really want to just send our hearts and our prayers out to all our brothers and sisters who, went to the marriage retreat, who are traveling to Korea and Japan and having an experience. All our brothers and sisters around the world who are desperately and working so hard to try to bring your kingdom on this earth, to further your providence, Heavenly Parent. There's so many people who are working so much harder than we are, and I just pray that we as a community, we can look at where we're at. We can look at our lives, we can look at our families, we can look at our community and think, how can we move past where we're at? How can we move beyond the barriers and the stumbling blocks that are in our way, Heavenly Parent? Because each and every one of us wants to come closer to you. We want to come before you as a family, really offer all the beauty and gratitude back, because we know that you have invested and given so much to us. We have so much to be grateful for. We actually have a really wonderful community, Heavenly Parent. There's so much to be thankful for. There's so much to be grateful for, Heavenly Parent. We just pray that in our lives that we can find a way to return that beauty back to you. We can give something valuable back to you, Heavenly Parent, for all the heart and love that you've invested into us. We know that we stand on the shoulders of people who've given so much, Heavenly Parent. Many people gave a lot in the past, and they didn't see a lot of the fruits for their efforts, Heavenly Parent. We can stand here today, and when we invest, we see fruits. We see things happen. We see you moving in different ways in our life. When we reach out to you, when we make effort to touch you, and we make effort to reach out to you, we see you. We experience you in our lives, Heavenly Parent. At least we should be. And I pray that in our community and all the people in this world who don't know you, who don't feel you in their life, who don't feel loved, that we can create the environment for that to happen, Heavenly Parent, in our community, in our families, that we can share your love and we can share your grace with the people of this world who are starving for it, who are missing it, and just that we can work to build the God-centered families, the good families that you can be a part of, that you can dwell in, that you can be inspired by, and that we can be a light to this world that is missing it, that we can help to build healthy families that can help to heal this world. And I offer this prayer in the name of Michael Donhentrick, a blessed Central family. Amen and Achu. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Pastor Mike. Something that really occurred to me as he was talking about how, we're always creating a vision for what's going to happen, whether we know it or not. And I realized, many of you know, I've been really striving to wake up early every day and center myself and get things done. And I really recognize that there are days when I go to bed or I wake up and I think, oh, this is going to be a rough day. I only got this much sleep, or I have this much stuff to do. And then that's the vision I cast for my day. And all day I'm like, oh man, I'm so tired. Or, oh gosh, I still have this to do, and I got this to do, and I got this to do, and I got this to do, But then there are other days when, actually even just like last night, I didn't even care how late I went to bed. I was so excited about all the different things that are going to happen today. It's just like many days, you get this much sleep and you got this many things to do, but I was just so excited about today and about seeing you and about all the things that are going to happen. And that's the way I'm experiencing the day, So I just think that was really relevant and a really relevant message. So thank you, Mike. So now we're going to go into our local announcements and see what's going on around here these days. Okay, so just past Thursday, we had, what's the title on here? Interreligious Sharing Series. And this is, I believe, the second one that we've done. And we had members from a local mosque and from Hare Krishna and from our community come together and discuss. Do we have the slide things? Okay. I believe we discussed how mankind came to be separated from God and what are the repercussions of that. So we had quite a few people come together and really great discussions of men and women from different faiths. And I think everybody really agreed that this was a really special thing that we can do is people from different faiths to come together, and they want to continue these series. Yeah. Okay. Today is also the 36th anniversary of the 2075 Blessed Couples. So many of you know we have a lot of couples who came together with one purpose of creating world peace and beautiful families in this world. And today we're celebrating over 2,000 couples who committed to that 36 years ago. So if there are any of you in this audience who are from this anniversary, would you please stand up and we can just give you a round of applause and recognize you? Yay! Happy anniversary! It's really fantastic, and I really acknowledge you and appreciate you for being such wonderful examples to our families in this community. Today after service, we are also having a Who Are We presentation. This is a brief introduction to our local church, our faith. You may notice that sometimes we do things a little differently. We have some different songs. We end our prayers a little differently. So this is a great opportunity to find out a little bit more about why. But even if you've been part of this community for a long time, it's a great chance to go a little bit deeper into our vision and why we are here, where we are going. That will be given by Pastor Mike in the French Ministry Room at 12:15. We still have a few more spots that we need to fill for our next round of cleaning and cooking. So if you have been meaning to do that, but you haven't actually done it yet, today is a great day to do it. We're especially looking for the last 3 weeks of July. They're coming up soon. And if you think you could pull together a lunch in 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, please let Mike or myself know and we'll put you down for one of those days. And if July doesn't work, there's a couple other days later on the year, but we would really love anybody who feels called to do that. And also, this is a new program that Dr. Hendrick has started. I believe this will be our second or third one, our new Bible study every Thursday at 7 p.m. And this is a great way to go deeper into the Bible and also with a principled perspective. So that will be here at the church on this coming Thursday and every Thursday. Let's dig in together. Also, next Sunday, we'll be beginning our new sermon series. So it's been a few weeks since we finished our last one, and we really want to start off again with our new sermon series. And this one is going to be titled A Home for All. And what we'll be doing is doing a number of different sermon series, each based on one of the points from our vision and mission statement. So we'll be really delving into depth and encompassing all the different aspects of a life that relate to our first point in our mission statement starting off next week. So please don't miss it. And next week we have the Martinez family is going to be cooking, and the Love family is going to be cleaning. So let's give them a round of applause and really appreciate them for doing that. And today is our potluck, so let's give everybody a round of applause for pitching in.